Welcome back to True Crime Pulse, the podcast where we bring you crime stories from around the world. It was just after midnight on a warm July night in 1997. A quiet street in Southern California, the kind of place where nothing unusual ever happened, suddenly became the scene of something terrible. A car stopped by the side of the road. Moments later, gunfire shattered the silence. A man ran, desperate to escape, but within seconds he fell to the ground. When police arrived, they found a disturbing sight. A lifeless body, a woman sitting beside the car, and a story that didn't add up. It was no random act of violence. What happened that night had been planned long before. Bruce Cleland was born on March 31st, 1954, in South Pasadena, California. He grew up in an affluent neighborhood with his older sister, surrounded by comfort and opportunity. His parents were well-educated and financially secure, with traces of family wealth reaching back generations. From the outside, the Clelands seemed like a perfect family. Successful parents, well-mannered children, and a bright future ahead. From an early age, Bruce displayed exceptional intelligence. But when he entered his teenage years, he learned that intelligence didn't protect him from cruelty. In 1968, he began attending South Pasadena High School, where his shy nature and unusual mannerisms made him an easy target for bullies. They called him Tiny Tim, comparing him to the eccentric performer known for his odd voice and awkward charm. For Bruce, the nickname hurt deeply. It wasn't just about his slim frame or soft-spoken voice. It reflected how others saw him, fragile, timid, and easy to ignore. Instead of fighting back, he laughed along, using humor as a shield. He rarely showed anger or defended himself, and his quiet nature made him even more isolated. Throughout high school, Bruce remained shy and withdrawn. He had no romantic relationships and kept mostly to himself, though those who looked closer saw a young man with a sharp mind, gentle spirit, and quiet wit. A few loyal friends appreciated his kindness and intelligence. At home, his father, Harold Cleland, was his greatest supporter. The two shared a close bond, often spending weekends at air shows and football games, moments that gave Bruce comfort and belonging. Despite being curious about dating, his lack of confidence kept him from trying. He feared rejection and instead focused his energy on academics. Science and technology became his refuge. Physics, mathematics, and computers fascinated him, and he poured himself into learning. By graduation in June 1972, Bruce was one of the strongest students in his class. He continued his education at Harvey Mudd College in Claremont, one of the top schools for science and engineering. In college, he began to open up socially, attending parties, drinking beer, and making new friends, but he never lost sight of his goals. In June 1976, he graduated with a Bachelor of Science degree. His ambition didn't stop there. He moved on to Stanford University, where he earned his master's degree. After completing his education, Bruce started his career at General Electric in San Jose, California. The job paid well, and he quickly became financially stable. Yet, unlike many others his age, Bruce wasn't drawn to flashy lifestyles or romantic pursuits. He lived simply and quietly, saving most of his income. Later, he joined TRW as a software engineer, working on advanced and sometimes classified projects for the U.S. military. In 1987, he was transferred to Redondo Beach, earning over $100,000 a year, a remarkable income for the time. But Bruce never showed off his success. He drove modest cars, dressed plainly, and avoided luxury. Practicality defined him. Every dollar had a purpose, carefully managed through savings, stocks, and long-term investments. His colleagues noticed his discipline, his calm focus, and his ability to stay grounded despite his achievements. Every choice Bruce made, whether personal or financial, reflected his careful and methodical nature. By the 1990s, he was in his late 30s. His appearance had matured, and the shy young man once haunted by schoolyard ridicule no longer had reason to feel self-conscious.
Yet love remained the one area of his life where uncertainty lingered. Years of isolation and inexperience had left him unsure how to connect. That was about to change. In late 1995, Bruce met a woman who would completely alter his path, Rebecca Salcedo. Their first encounter took place at a local swap meet where Rebecca was selling spices. For Bruce, who had never dated seriously, the moment felt extraordinary. He was immediately drawn to her charm and beauty. Unsure how to approach her, he offered to help her find a job in an IT company. Rebecca played along and handed him her resume. Not long after, Bruce called her and their relationship began. From the very beginning, Rebecca's intentions seemed unusually forward. Within a week of meeting, she mentioned marriage. For Bruce, who had never experienced such direct affection, it was both overwhelming and flattering. He eagerly agreed, stepping into his first romantic relationship with hopeful innocence. Rebecca quickly introduced him to her family and her 5-year-old son. She claimed she had no contact with the boy's father and didn't even know who he was. Before long, she began leaning on Bruce for financial support. She complained about her living situation, and Bruce, eager to help, offered to rent her an apartment. He furnished it, paid all expenses, and even bought her a car. First a used Honda, and later, after some persuasion, a new Toyota.
For Rebecca, gifts came easily. For Bruce, giving felt like love. Having spent years saving and living frugally, he took pride in being able to provide for her. Soon, Rebecca's requests grew larger. A boat, cosmetic surgery, expensive jewelry. To Bruce, this generosity was a way of showing affection. To Rebecca, it was an opportunity. She insisted she wanted to wait until marriage for physical intimacy, something Bruce viewed as a sign of moral strength. She told him she had only ever been with one man, her child's father, and Bruce saw this as proof of her virtue. To him, she was special, worth protecting, and worth every sacrifice. When it came to the engagement ring, Rebecca chose an extravagant diamond worth $10,000. Though Bruce was usually cautious with money, he didn't hesitate to spend it. Soon after, she said she wanted a beautiful home near Los Angeles. Bruce purchased a 4-bedroom house valued at $350,000, a significant amount in the mid-1990s. They held a small civil wedding in October 1996, but Rebecca wanted more, a grand church ceremony filled with the glamour she felt she deserved. The event was planned for January 1997. Until then, she suggested that she and her son should move into the new house alone, claiming it would be more traditional if Bruce waited until after the church wedding. Trusting her completely, Bruce agreed, believing her words came from love and respect. In reality, Rebecca had quickly discovered how easily she could manipulate him. Bruce saw their relationship as his first taste of real romance. She saw it as leverage. She knew he was inexperienced with women, easily flattered and desperate to please. What he believed was love, she used for personal gain. But who was Rebecca Salcedo, really? Her story began long before she met Bruce. Her mother Lucy had grown up in Mexico, where she suffered abuse that led to an early pregnancy. Pressured by her family to marry her abuser to avoid disgrace, she entered a marriage that was miserable and unstable. Struggling financially, the family eventually moved to the United States in search of better opportunities. On August 15, 1969, in California, Rebecca was born, the third daughter in a household already burdened by hardship. When she was still young, her father abandoned the family. Later years, they learned he had died. The responsibility of raising the children fell entirely on Lucy, who worked tirelessly to keep them afloat. Life in California was difficult. Though extended relatives occasionally helped, money was always tight. Eventually, Lucy remarried a man named Pedro Salcedo, who treated her daughters as his own and brought some stability to their lives. But even then, the family's struggles continued. Lucy's mental health began to deteriorate over time, causing her to withdraw from daily life.
Much of the household burden fell on her daughters, who learned to take care of themselves far too early. Inside the Salcedo home, tension ruled. The sisters competed endlessly, clashing instead of caring for one another. With no firm parental guidance, authority was absent. Everyone did whatever they pleased. As Rebecca entered her teenage years, she quickly learned that rules didn't apply to her. School held little interest. She preferred parties, attention, and the company of the popular crowd. Her natural charm drew people in, and she soon realized the power her looks could command, especially over boys. With confidence and boldness, she learned to use that attention to her advantage. There was always someone willing to drive her around, spend money on her, or shower her with gifts. By 16, Rebecca made a decision that would define her path. She married a man, not for love, but for money, accepting $2,000 to help him obtain a green card. It marked the beginning of a lifelong pattern, using relationships as a way to secure comfort, control, or wealth. The early 1990s brought major upheavals. In 1991, she was arrested for drug possession with intent to sell and sentenced to 3 years in prison. Around that same time, she discovered she was pregnant, but couldn't say who the father was. On October 22, 1991, while still incarcerated, she gave birth to a son. Her family took the baby in as she served her term, though she was released only 18 months. None of this would ever reach Bruce Cleland's ears. He would never learn about her time in prison, her drug charges, or the chaotic life she had led. By the time she met him, Rebecca had carefully erased her past. After prison, she faced the challenge of rebuilding her life with no education, no job, and a child to support. But she wasn't alone for long. She began a relationship with a former police officer named Sherry, a man whom friends later described as her true love. Rebecca even tattooed Sherry's name on her leg as a sign of devotion. For a few years, from 1991 to 1994, Rebecca, Sherry, and her son lived together, forming the closest thing to a stable family she had ever known. Then tragedy struck. In 1994, her mother, who had long battled mental illness, took her own life. The loss devastated Rebecca and altered her completely. She grew angry, volatile, and unpredictable. Arguments with Sherry became constant. The drinking, late nights, and reckless behavior returned. Soon after, the relationship fell apart.
Once again, Rebecca found herself adrift, restless, searching for someone to hold on to. It was during this turbulent period that she met Bruce Cleland. To Rebecca, he was not a partner, but an opportunity. She saw immediately that he was kind, naive, and eager to please. She knew exactly what kind of story to tell, one that painted her as virtuous, loyal, and in need of love. Bruce believed every word. When Bruce bought a house for their future, Rebecca didn't wait for the marriage to start. She moved in with her son, leaving Bruce to stay elsewhere until their planned church wedding. The home soon became the site of constant activity. Rebecca threw parties and entertained guests freely. Men came and went, but when Bruce questioned her, she brushed him off, insisting they were just cousins. Trusting and inexperienced, Bruce accepted her explanations. Their grand church wedding took place in January 1997. It was lavish, full of glamour and promise. To the guests, they looked like the perfect couple. But behind Rebecca's radiant smile was contempt. Days before the ceremony, at her bachelorette party, she reportedly told friends she didn't love Bruce, that she was marrying him for his money. During their honeymoon in Hawaii, her disdain became impossible to hide. She called friends back home, mocking her new husband and ridiculing their intimate moments in cruel detail. She said being with him was humiliating. Those who knew her hoped marriage might soften her, that she might finally change, but Rebecca had no such intention. After returning from Hawaii, the facade of marriage fell apart. Rebecca resumed partying, spent Bruce's money freely, and continued her affairs without shame. Bruce, unwilling or unable to face the truth, buried himself in work, and avoided home life altogether. Within 4 months, the relationship had deteriorated beyond repair. Rebecca began openly discussing divorce and bragged about the money she expected to receive. But her plans hit a wall. Under California law, Bruce's wealth acquired before their marriage couldn't be divided. Furious yet determined, Rebecca started plotting her next move. The cracks in their marriage became public in April when police were called to the house after a violent argument. For Bruce, the emotional strain was unbearable. Calm and soft-spoken by nature, Bruce was rarely one to lose his temper. But being forced out of his own home pushed him beyond his limits. He left and sought legal advice, finally realizing that Rebecca's affection had always been rooted in greed, not love. The division of their assets after the separation shattered her expectations. Since Bruce had bought his house and built his wealth long before the marriage, the law was firmly on his side. Those assets remained his. When everything was counted, only about $5,000 was left to split, an amount Rebecca considered humiliating. Yet she refused to let go of Bruce's money. Even after their separation, she secretly continued using his credit cards for luxury clothes, jewelry, fine dining, and spa treatments. Outwardly, her life looked glamorous, but beneath the surface, it was Bruce's hard-earned income that kept it afloat. By this time, Bruce had returned to live with his parents. His lawyer warned him to keep his distance, but Bruce still hoped their marriage could be saved. Sensing his vulnerability, she began to play on it, pretending to consider reconciliation. On Friday, July 25, 1997, she called Bruce with an unexpected suggestion: they should try again. To him, it felt like a second chance. That night, they met at the same restaurant where they'd shared their first date. He picked her up, and by 9:30 p.m., the couple arrived for dinner. An hour later, they were back on the road. At Rebecca's request, they stopped by her uncle's house, a man she'd long viewed as a father figure. They chatted for a while, calm and cordial, then left around 1 a.m. Rebecca was behind the wheel when the car turned onto a quiet stretch of road. She told Bruce she needed to step out to check the tailgate. As he sat waiting, a shadow approached. Gunfire erupted without warning. Bruce was hit, stumbled from the car, and tried to run, but another bullet struck him in the back. As he fell, the gunman closed in and fired a final shot to his head. A nearby resident, Virginia, witnessed the horror through her window and immediately called 911. Officers arrived within minutes. They found Bruce dead only a few feet from the vehicle. Rebecca sat calmly near the hood, claiming she'd been struck in the head and knocked unconscious. But something felt off. She wasn't trembling, she wasn't crying, she appeared composed. She insisted it was a robbery, even claiming her diamond ring had been stolen. Detectives quickly noticed inconsistencies. Her purse and phone were untouched inside the car. Bruce's wallet, still in his pocket, contained cash. Medical reports showed no signs of any head injury. During questioning, Rebecca's statements revolved around herself, her outfit, their dinner, the nostalgia of their first date, details irrelevant to the murder. Investigators grew suspicious. A deeper look into the couple's past painted a darker picture. Friends described Rebecca's lavish spending, multiple affairs, and fixation on wealth. Then came the discovery that sealed her fate. A month before Bruce's death, she had secretly taken out life insurance policies on him, totaling about $1 million, with forged signatures. If Bruce died, she stood to gain everything: his home, his possessions, and the payout. Further evidence revealed a link to a young Latino man seen near the crime scene. Phone records led police to Alvaro Quesada, Rebecca's cousin, who matched the description. When confronted, Alvaro confessed to being the shooter, admitting that Rebecca had hired him. His brother Jose also confessed, confirming that the murder had been a family plot. In June 2000, Rebecca Cleland, Alvaro, and Jose Quesada were convicted of first-degree murder and conspiracy to commit murder.
The jury determined that the crime involved special circumstances, financial gain, and lying in wait. In 2003, Rebecca was sentenced to life in prison without parole, showing no remorse. She remains incarcerated at the California Institution for Women in Corona. Her cousins are also serving life sentences in state prisons. For Bruce's parents, the verdict brought justice, but little comfort. They had warned their son about Rebecca, sensing danger long before the tragedy. They watched as his once vibrant spirit dimmed under her control. He had planned to end the marriage, but fate gave him no time. Bruce Cleland's story remains one of betrayal and tragedy, a chilling reminder of how trust can be weaponized, how greed can turn affection into cruelty, and how a gentle, intelligent man's quiet life was destroyed by someone who saw him only as a path to wealth. Thank you for listening to today's story. Share your thoughts on the story, like and subscribe to the channel. Until the next episode, stay vigilant.